Welcome to the Nerdstalgic Podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy folks, and welcome back to another fantastical, amazing, some might say even incredible Nerdstalgic Podcast with me, your host Luke. Hope you're all doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. Today's topic is going to be a fun one, but before I get into it, got to get the business out of the way. So it's normal business as always, as you guys know, or if you're a new listener, which if you are, thank you for listening. If you're returning, again, thank you for returning. It is an absolute pleasure. But if you know, or if you don't know, World of Books has made the decision to sponsor the show as well as this episode. What that means is that they've gave me a promotional code which you can use at checkout, which will give you 10% off your next order. That code being Nerdy10. That's NERDY 10 or higher case. Put that in at checkout, and then you can get yourself 10% off on books, video games, vinyls, everything and anything that they have on their store. Just go on their store, check it out, and save yourself 10% off. And thank you once again to World of Books for sponsoring the show. So, first of all, before we start, I just want to say I do apologise if within doing this episode I do stutter or I do repeat words more than once, mainly because one, I'm really, really excited to talk about this topic that we're going to be talking about today, but also it's incredibly warm. See, my voice is already going because it's that humid. It's incredibly warm in my room. I've had all the windows open, but there's no breeze. So if there's any moment where I might get a bit quiet, or might slow down, or might talk too quickly, or stutter, that is why. So I do apologise for that in the meantime. But today's topic that we're going to be talking about is She-Hulk. Now, if I plan this right, and I'm recording this on the right day, and I get it out on the right day, you should be listening to this on the Wednesday. She-Hulk, the first episode of She-Hulk comes out on Disney Plus on the Thursday. So I figured I would do a sort of book review of this. What should I say? See, I'm getting a bit tongue-tied already. My brain's all foggy. I'll go back to my notes of this She-Hulk graphic novel that I recently read. Now, I've been a fan of She-Hulk for a very, very long time. I'll even go as far as to say I have a crush on her, which I might as well just get out the way now and just say that I have a huge crush on She-Hulk. I have since the first time I ever saw her. I think the first time I saw her was, I can't remember the name of the comic book. I know it was Fantastic Four. I can't remember the name of the actual series or what storyline was happening, but I remember that she became a member of the Fantastic Four for a while, and that was my first introduction to her, and then from there I just fell in love. But I never actually properly sat down and read any sort of She-Hulk books at all. I mostly just saw his cameos, kind of like the fact of I'm a big fan of the Discworld series, and I love Death. Death is one of my favorite characters, and whenever he appears in any of the Discworld books, I'm instantly I'm so excited, so happy to see him. And it's the same with She-Hulk. Whenever she appears in stories that I've read, again, it's that very happy sort of, oh my God, there she is. She looks amazing. My Emerald Queen, So I figured with the hype of She-Hulk coming in the MCU now, and that we're not going to get a standalone Hulk movie anytime soon. For those that know and those that don't know, Paramount owns the licensing rights, the standalone movie rights to Hulk. What that means is that Marvel can use the Hulk in Avengers, they can use it in Thor, they could put him in Spider-Man if they wanted, they could put him anywhere in the MCU as long as he's with somebody. But they can't do a standalone movie because the way it works, because Paramount has the standalone movie rights, that if Marvel wanted to do it, which they could, I'm sure Paramount would let them do it if they asked. But what that would mean is that Paramount would get a percentage. I don't know how much of a percentage, but they'd get a percentage of the earnings. So say, for example, the new Hulk came out, they made a Planet Hulk or World War Hulk, and then they decided, when it came out, the movie makes $1 billion at the box office, and Paramount's like, well, I want 500 million of that, and obviously, and I want a cut of whatever merchandise you sell throughout this, like bottles, t-shirts, that sort of things. Marvel and DC, yeah, sorry, see, tongue tied. I do apologize. Marvel and Disney can't say no, you can't have any. They have to legally, by contract, they have to give a percentage of the merchandise. They'd have to give a percentage of the box office, and obviously, business being business, Marvel and Disney are going to want to keep that billion for themselves, so they can funnel it into more projects and more Marvel and Star Wars and all the other sort of projects that they have under their sort of banner. So, it makes sense. But I've heard from the grapevine, through Twitter and Reddit and so on and so forth, that there has been rumblings that apparently Paramount loses the standalone movie rights to Hulk next year in 2023. If that is true, then I'm incredibly excited, because that would mean that we can finally actually have a Hulk that we know and love being the Hulk. Because I love what the MCU have done with the Hulk up until Age of Ultron. After that, they've kind of watered the Hulk down. They've kind of made him not as sort of cool. Thor Ragnarok was pretty cool, what they did with him, where he was more Hulk than Banner. I liked that. But then they started making him all sort of clever Hulk, and then they had sort of the mix between Banner and Hulk, and it just, I don't know. Like, they've done it in the comic books, but at the end of the day, when you want the Hulk, you want World Breaker Hulk. You want, like, the Destroyer, because in the first Avengers movie, it was known and stated, and even in sort of Age of Ultron, it was known and stated, like, he is the nuclear weapon. He is the bomb, the big sort of key to it all. That if we don't keep the Hulk happy, or if we let anybody get to him, that's it. We're done for. And even Loki knew that, and Loki was tried to use the Hulk against it, or the whole team. But as the movies have gone on, they've kind of neutered him. So it is kind of a shame, and I understand why they did it. But at the same stage, like, I want my Hulk back, really. The reason I mention that is the fact of She-Hulk is not part of that. She-Hulk is owned by Marvel and owned by Disney completely. So they can, if they wanted, after doing this, they can go off and do a She-Hulk movie, which I hope they do. I haven't even seen the TV show yet. I've just seen the trailer, and I know that this is already going. It's going to be as amazing, hopefully, if not better than Miss Marvel, and hopefully better than WandaVision. And then we get to see more She-Hulk, and then more interactions. And then maybe when they get around to doing the Thunderbolts movie next year, when Disney gets the rights back to Hulk, that we can have, maybe the Hulk can be the villain in the Thunderbolts, and that maybe She-Hulk is trying to protect her cousin because she's the only one who can help him because Bruce lost his mind or something like that, or he's starting to go World Breaker Hulks, I don't know, and the Thunderbolts are sort of tasked to go take him down. Again, I don't know. I'm just, speculating, like, we might have the Red Hulk eventually. I'm just really, really excited to see what they do. But the reason I bring it up is the fact of She-Hulk is the beginning of it all, really. I feel like She-Hulk is going to be, this is all theory, this is all me just speculating. Again, I haven't seen the episode yet. When you're hearing this, you guys haven't seen the episode yet. But there is still that hope and that dream that eventually She-Hulk could start the wheels turning, that hopefully, with all the other cameos that's going to be in it, they're going to be Daredevil cameos, and there's going to be Titania and all these other sort of A, B, C, D, E, F, G class villains that are going to start coming in. The world's going to ever expand, and it's going to be interesting. I just hope that now that Paramount is going to give the rights back to Disney, that hopefully the Thunderbolts movie is going to do it justice, and that the enemy, the big bad, is going to be the Hulk, and we're going to have World Breaker Hulk, and then from there, the Immortal Hulk, and I don't know what else could they do next. But I'm going off on this hulky tandiness, maybe even bringing out A-Bomb. I'd love to see A-Bomb come into it, and Sakaar, Hulk's son, and all that. So there is so much they can do. There's so many ways they can go. I just sort of fingers crossed that we go there. But going back to this review, going back to this graphic novel, as I mentioned, I've never read any sort of She-Hulk sort of novel. I've read tons of Hulk. I've read tons of all the other sort of characters. But for me, She-Hulk has always been a character that, again, like I said, she just pops up places. And I figured this new She-Hulk trailer looks amazing. I have a huge crush on She-Hulk. I figured, why not? So I went out, got myself the volume 1 of the She-Hulk Omnibus that dates from 2004 to 2005. There are other volumes. I think it goes all the way up to volume 9 or volume 10, and that goes up to, I think, 2011, 2012. That She-Hulk has this huge run from like 2004. So this one I'm reading now only goes up from 2004 to 2000 and the beginning of 2005, I believe. 1 second, let me open it up. Right, so yeah, the last one, some assembly required. Premiere was part of She-Hulk from the 2004 run, but came out in February 2005. So yeah, a run from 2004 to 2005. Obviously, the series went on and on and on and on. But this was She-Hulk's revival. Because before this, She-Hulk was just, again, she was a sort of a cameo sort of character. She had her own sort of the sensational and the savage She-Hulk. But this is where she had her revive, where people started to fall in love and started taking the She-Hulk character a lot more serious now. One thing that I love about She-Hulk, from doing my research about it, is that I found that she was doing fourth wall breaks before Deadpool. Everybody says whenever there's a fourth wall break, it's always Deadpool, but actually, I think she was doing it first. From my research, it seems that the fourth wall breaks was done by She-Hulk first. If true, is absolutely fantastic. So that's my sort of joy and love of the what's going to come next with She-Hulk. Like, there's loads of things that I hope to see. There's loads of things that they hope they deal with, and that they tackle. But we will see what happens. I've just got my fingers crossed, and hopefully that the episode tomorrow, or well, for me it's a few days away, but for you guys tomorrow, just know I'm excited. If you want to know my sort of live reaction to what I feel about the episode, by all means follow me at Nerdstalgic_pod on Twitter, and then you'll get a live reaction of how I feel before watching it, during watching it, and after watching it. Most likely I'm going to be in love with it, and it's going to be one of my favourite shows ever. Even if it's complete trash, which I don't think it will be, but even if the show is complete trash, I will still love it because I love the actress playing She-Hulk, and I just love She-Hulk, so it's a win-win for me all round. So, on to the next section. The next section, I'm going to do a breakdown of the front, back, and the inside of the book. This one's going to be a bit different. This one I'm going to be a bit more of a tricky than doing what I've done previously. Previously, when I've done book reviews, as I do when I do a game review, if I have the game in my hand, I will sort of give you a description of what's on the front of the box and what's on the back of the box and kind of what you would see if you pulled it off the shelf. And I do it the same with my book reviews. And it's going to be kind of the same here, just a little bit more difficult because obviously it's a graphic novel, a lot more images. So it's going to have to me tackling that as hard as possible, try to be as descriptive as possible so that you listen at home can use your mind's eye to see what I see. So on the front cover, in big letters, in green and purple, you've got She-Hulk, and you've got She-Hulk looking absolutely gorgeous. I will post an image of this on my Twitter so you can have a look at it for yourself, but it's an absolutely gorgeous image of She-Hulk in her, I'm not sure what it's called. It's like there is a name for it. It's like a one piece bathing suit sort of thing. I don't know, bikini sort of thing. But she's in that. It's a gorgeous purple and white, and she's breaking in through she's broke through a wall, and she's absolutely gorgeous. And it's on the front, it goes Marvel, and the names of the people who wrote the story. Omnibus. On this back, we've got another picture of She-Hulk, and this time of Spider-Man. And you've got a description on the back that goes, she's lean, mean, and all green. Then we've got some accolades. We've got this arc really redefined the character for a whole new generation, giving her a depth that some previous creators neglected and making both sides of her life important. That was from Major Spoilers. Then we've got another one from Publishers Weekly. Slott's dialogue is witty and the stories are never too serious. So that's the accolades. As for the description, we've got, before he became a superstar writer on Amazing Spider-Man, Dan Slott delighted readers with the sensational She-Hulk run. Jennifer Walters is a gamma-powered green Goliath just like her hulkish cousin, but her home is in the courtroom, where she takes on some of the wildest legal cases in the Marvel Universe, alongside co-workers including reformed android Awesome Andy, researching old Marvel comics to set legal precedents. Could She-Hulk's career get any stranger? Sure, when she gets summoned to outer space to practice universal law for the living tribunal. Plus, all-out smackdowns against Titania and a host of super villains. So that's the front, that's the back. Inside, we've got a lovely little sort of, I don't know, what would you call, like a bio, that kind of gives you a sort of brief description of who She-Hulk is, the character of She-Hulk, and where it all began. So I'm going to take a quick break, have something to drink, and then we're going to get right into it. So let's get into it, shall we? And we're back. Oh, God, I needed that break. Honestly, this room is so hot. Like, I did have a fan on, but I had to turn it off because obviously it gets caught in by the mic, and otherwise, if I left it on, all you'd hear was zzz in the background. So I had to turn it off. All the windows are open. There is zero breeze. So I've just got a trusty ice cold cup of water that I keep having to like just drink down and take my headphones off and let my head breathe. It is an absolute nightmare. If to be honest, if She-Hulk wasn't coming out this week, I would have happily sort of not recorded this now and recorded it when it was a lot colder. But sadly, she comes out soon, so I've got to make sure that I am ahead of the curve and I get this out as soon as possible. Anyway, so I do it for you guys. I love you guys. I do it for you, not for me, for you. Anyway, so as I was saying in the previous one, I'm going to read this description of She-Hulk, and it basically gives a more in-depth look into the character. So right, here we go. Not only is Jennifer Walters a lawyer, but she's also the cousin of Dr. Bruce Banner, better known to the world as the Incredible Hulk. But how did a legal eagle gain the same powers as the Jade Giant and become the superhero known as a Savage She-Hulk? Well, it's an interesting tale in two parts. The first part of She-Hulk's backstory is down to the success of the TV show The $6 Million Man. Yes, you read that right. She-Hulk was created due to the popularity of Lee Majors, the actor who played the bionic secret agent Steve Austin. At the height of the show's fame in the late 70s, series producer Kenneth Johnson spun off an equally successful series called The Bionic Woman. Concerned that Johnson could do the same with the popular series The Incredible Hulk, which he also produced, Marvel and Stan Lee wanted to ensure the rights to such a character remained the property of Marvel, so Lee and artist John Buscema created She-Hulk, who debuted in the Savage She-Hulk on the February 1980. The second part is the character's origin story. Joan Walters was an LA defense lawyer working on dangerous cases. Her client was framed for the murder of the bodyguard of crime boss Nicholas Trask. Meanwhile, her cousin Bruce sought her out for help as he was being hunted by the US Army and the police. As children, Jennifer and Bruce were close, so she was the only person Bruce felt that she could trust. However, Jennifer was shot by hitmen sent by Trask to silence her. To save her life, Bruce gave her a transfusion of his own blood, imbuing her with the same gamma powers and transforming her into the She-Hulk. Unlike her cousin, it says cuz, but I'm going to say cousin because it just sounds better. Unlike her cousin, though, Jennifer had more control over her abilities, going on to become an Avenger and a member of the Fantastic Four. Fast forward a couple of decades, and after many adventures, the new creative team of rising star writer Dan Slott and artist John Bublio was tasked with creating a new She-Hulk series. Slott shifted the focus to Jennifer's legal profession, She-Hulk's, while at the same time incorporating plenty of She-Hulk's action and a good dose of humor. The art of Bublio and fellow illustrator Paul Peltier perfectly complemented Slott's witty and action-packed script as Jennifer struggled to balance her legal career with hero duties. In addition, the creative team introduced adorable new characters who joined the staff at the legal firm of Goodman, Lieber, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, a nod to the original publishers and editors at Timely Comics before it became Marvel, such as Awesome Andy, formerly the Mad Tinker's Awesome Android. Slott's run on She-Hulk redefined the character for the modern age and is now a true classic. So you have to kind of bear with me with my dyslexia. I do apologize. But that gives you a big description. I didn't know that She-Hulk was kind of a way to counteract the whole sort of somebody might make a She-Hulk TV show, so Marvel and sort of Stan Lee wanted to get ahead of it and have the rights to the character just in case that happened. I don't think it ever happened. I only know of the original Incredible Hulk TV show. I don't think they ever made a spin-off of it all. But it's good to have, that's quite clever, how the fact of a worry out of somebody else stealing the rights to the character, they jumped ahead of it and they made the character themselves, so they owned it completely. And I think if they didn't do that, we might never have gotten She-Hulk. But we might have, maybe a lot further down the line, or we might not have. And that would have meant we wouldn't have had She-Red Hulk. We wouldn't have had Betty Ross turn into the She-Red Hulk, and who knows if we had all the other Gamma sort of characters that we had, like Doc Samson and all that. Who knows? But it's just a fantastic idea to know that we have She-Hulk now because of something small and sort of silly, but also incredibly serious. If that possibility came up and they didn't have the rights, so I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I just find this character so fascinating. I find it so incredible. So what I'm going to do to dive into this story, to dive into She-Hulk a bit more. Now I've kind of give you a backstory and a bit more understanding with the characters and where the character came from and how they started. I figured I'm going to give you sort of a brief thoughts and feelings of each one of the stories, because each one of the stories all kind of connect with each other, but each one of their own standalone, because obviously this is an omnibus. This is a collection of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 stories in this one storyline. So I feel I'm going to give you a quick rundown of my feelings on each one. We won't go into full detail, obviously, because we'll be here for hours and hours and hours. But I'll give you a brief description of each one and we'll do it that way. So the first one is a girl from Gamma Gamma Gamma. In this story, we kind of get to see a lot more of sort of Jen, of before she became She-Hulk, that she was just a nerd. She had no friends. She had nobody. She just sort of didn't go to parties, didn't do anything crazy. She went to law school. She studied. That was it. And now she's become She-Hulk. It's more just the fact of, she doesn't like being Jen. She only wants to be She-Hulk. One of the things that you find in this storyline from all the comic books is the fact of there are many moments where she just hates being Jen. She wants to be She-Hulk, and she even says multiple times that, like, why would you want to be her? I'm as She-Hulk. I'm incredibly strong. I'm attractive. I'm beautiful. Men want me. Women envy me. Whereas when I'm Jen, I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I'm weak, which is not true because Jen herself is quite beautiful and stunning, but obviously she just feels like She-Hulk is better, which I can understand that. Like if you was imbued with superhuman strengths, a crazy beauty, the whole everything about you was just transformed, that you were just better. I think a lot of people would prefer to stay the better version that they've become, then go back to who they were before. Now, obviously, we can go behind by the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and that should never change what's already there. It's all about internal beauty. I get that and I understand that, but also the fact of I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who, if they had this opportunity, probably would. But I sort of, when I started reading this, I kept thinking to myself, like, stop being so hard on yourself. Like, I understand, I get it, that you have all this power, all this sort of attention. You never had it growing up. Nobody cared who you were before you became She-Hulk. But at the same stage, it's the fact of you wouldn't be She-Hulk if you wasn't Jen. And Jen wouldn't be who she is without She-Hulk. You both need each other. Kind of like Bruce needs the Hulk, and the Hulk needs Bruce. Without them, neither of them sort of work. So they both kind of, it's like a symbiotic relationship. They both need each other. It's kind of interesting because like when this sort of starts off, you get a sort of big-headed, sort of egotistic sort of She-Hulk, where she's like, well, I'm seriously strong, I'm seriously powerful, I'm sexy, I can have any man I want. All she's doing, she's having parties, she's with the Avengers, and she's saving the day. And then when she saves the day, she choose parties and she shags loads of, not loads of people, but like she gets drunk and all this jazz. And it's kind of like all the other Avengers are like, oh, Jen, calm down. We can't have all these parties all the time. Take it easy. And at the same stage, it's like, well, we're gonna have to leave. Like, we've got to kick you out. You can't stay with us. And it turns out like another sort of guy comes out of nowhere and offers her a job to work in a more sort of instead of just being a legal sort of normal sort of lawyer, being a superhero and supervillain lawyer to kind of defend superheroes. So that's what you get from the first sort of story from Gamma Gamma Gamma, is just an idea that she doesn't like who she is. She's not really happy with being anybody but She-Hulk. and that she doesn't understand why people like Jen. She doesn't understand why some people would rather her be Jen instead of being She-Hulk all the time. She can't understand it, and that kind of what you get as you go through this whole sort of series is the fact if you learn as each series goes on that she kind of appreciates the Jen side of her more than she did. And eventually, by the end, she has that moment of us like, it's okay to be She-Hulk. It's okay to be Walters. Jen. It's okay to not be strong all the time. So the next one is classic action comics. This is the one. Jen's finally been kicked out of the Avengers Tower, and she starts a new job today at Goldman, Lieberman, Kurtzberg, and Holloway, lawyers in practice. She gets help by Wanda. Wanda helps her sort of leave, and sort of Jen's kind of worried the fact of because this new firm when they hired her they said, well, we don't want She-Hulk, we want Jen. We don't need the She-Hulk, and that's again that kind of comes in the fact of, well, why would you want Jen? And she's like, no, we want you. We don't want the superhero. We want the league, the lawyer part of it. And she was kind of worried the fact of if she's going to help and defend superheroes as well as villains, that she's worried that people are going to sort of want to attack her when she's vulnerable, and she's going to break her promise to her new boss that she won't Hulk out. And sort of Wanda basically goes to her like, oh, no problem, and basically with a swap of her hand does a spell on her. And I'm reading here from the comics. She-Hulk goes, Wanda, what did you just do? Wanda goes, a cloaking spell. Now, no one who wishes the She-Hulk harm can recognize you in this form. So whenever Jen is in Jen form, when she's not in She-Hulk form, she's in her normal human form. Anybody who wishes the She-Hulk harm can't see her at all. She's completely invisible, which is really, really, really cool trick. So she's left. She's on her way to a new job, and she's coming. And this is what I love. This is where, for me, this is where it started to get interesting, started to get silly, because the cameos in this were just off the chain. You'd have moments where Doctor Strange is currently being sued by somebody. You've got another one where you've got what they call now. So we've got this one here. We've got conference 2, Moloids, which are people that live underground. And she goes, right now the enviro controls are set for subterranean conditions. But once we wrap things up, we'll plump in a few 100 gallons of seawater, and then our legal team will swap their night vision goggles for diving helmets. So like they have different sort of rooms where fit for different conditions. You've got rooms for heroes and villains that can fly. Like I said, Doctor Strange is being sued by some kid. You've got Awesome Andy, who worked for the Thinker, who is now who's now not evil. He's a good guy. He helps around the office. There's even one episode just down completely to Awesome Andy, and it's great. It's so much fun. You've got one where you get Ditto, who is a shapeshifter. It looks like if you was to get chewing gum, and you used to chew chewing gum and then just throw it on the floor, he looks like that. He's pink. And he can shapeshift into anybody. He kind of serves. No, people go, "Oh, you've been served," and they hand out the severance sort of thing. He's one of those people. Then we get Jen gets introduced to Danger Dan, her first client. Danger Dan is a guy that works for the Roxxon company. He gets knocked over, falls into some radioactive sort of goop, comes out of it, gets superhuman strength, superhuman ability, becomes really strong, really tall, beautiful hair, basically everything that you would imagine, like if you was to fall into nuclear waste, not in real life, obviously in comic book form. Don't go jumping into nuclear waste, please. I don't want to get sued. But Luke told me you can jump in superhuman waste and I become really, really strong. No, that won't happen. You just get radiated poison and then die painfully. Please don't do that. But in comic book form, he falls in, gets all these powers, and basically what he wants to do, he wants to sue Roxxon for this. And Jen's like, well, that makes no sense, because again, she's still thinking She-Hulk mind. She's like, well, why would you want to sue a company for making you superhuman, for making you strong, making you powerful, making you better run fast, live longer, look beautiful, everything that anybody's ever dreamed of? And he's like, well, you don't understand. And then the story goes on to kind of show you the fact of a day in the life of Danger Dan, where people don't want to go near him because they think he's radioactive. People don't want to he doesn't know the power of his strength. Like he was in bed with his wife, nothing sexual. He was in bed. There's a story here where he's in bed with his wife, and accidentally, all he did was roll over in bed, and he crushed her, and he fractured her neck, and then broke her arm. And it's the fact of it's ruining my love life. It's ruining my kid's life. That she's getting bullied at school. And it's just the fact of it. These are again. I think I've talked about this before in another episode, but these are the sides of superheroes and origin stories that you don't see. It's that kind of fact of when you have heroism thrust upon you, are you ready to be a hero? You just see the good side. You see, the hero comes in, saves the day, great. But then again, people don't talk about it because it's the boring parts. But then, what's your day to day like? If you're super strong, and you've got to learn how to. You don't learn how to control your strength. You don't want to open a door and then pull the door off the hinges. You know what I mean? You don't want to start running and not realize you're running super fast, stop, and then that's it. You run somebody over and make them into paste. Or if you're flying around the town, if you don't accidentally realize where you're going, it's cloudy and you fly right into a plane. You know what I mean? These sort of things of like, you don't hear about these sort of stories where like how it affects your life and how it affects other people's lives around you. And again, I just think that's really, really interesting. It's just something that I've never thought of. Of like, well, how would a superhero, somebody who got powers like Superman, how would they sort of live in the real world, and how would people see them, and people would avoid them? I don't want to go near him, he's radioactive. It's the fact of if he gets angry, he starts to get more radioactive, kind of like the Hulk, but like it's the point of instead of the Hulk gets just more angry and more stronger, this guy, if he goes super critical, he goes nuclear and he just so it's the fact of, well, how am I going to deal with that? And so this is Jen's first case of trying to kind of deal with the fact of, well, I don't understand that fact of like, well, I like who I am. I like being strong. I wasn't anybody before I became She-Hulk. And she starts to deal with that. She starts to see it from a different perspective, how it affects your life, how it affects the peoples around you, and how basically you've got to come to terms with the fact of it's okay. It's actually okay to be normal. There's nothing wrong being normal. And just because you have this power doesn't mean it's your life is fantastic. His life is great. A majority of the time, whenever she's facing villains in this story, what I love is She-Hulk talks them down. There is fighting sometimes, but most of the time she's just talking them down. She's telling them. She's like this one time where Danger Dan in this series, where he's kind of like his wife's left him, took the kids, and it's kind of like everybody hates me. My wife's gone. That's it. It's all over. And it basically goes. He gets angry. She-Hulk comes behind him. He punches She-Hulk across the street. She gets up, was like, everybody clear out the way. I'm going to deal with this. And she could beat him up. She could take him on and have a huge fight and have loads of issues. But she's talking clear. She's like, calm down. He's like, you didn't hear her. You didn't hear her. She said, get out. I'm an atomic Superman who's having a meltdown. And she goes, Dan, what are you doing, Dan? And she goes, I'm blowing myself up. It's the only way Roxxon will pay, the only way to provide for my family to end this. Why be so academic? Everything would be better off if I was dead. Don't you understand? And he goes, I just want things the way they were. I want my old life back. And he's about to do it, but before he does it, She-Hulk turns back to a human, and she starts to walk towards him. And she goes, well, you're taking me with you. And he's like, I'll do it. And he's in the image, in the photo, the whole image is just yellow. And it's just an outline of him where he's about to go critical. And she goes, no, you won't, because you're not that guy. You're the guy who tries to make things safe, the guy who looks out for his family. He's still part of you, the most important part of you. And then he kind of calms down and realizes. And he goes, I'm sorry. I didn't ask for this. And now what do I do now? And she goes, now we team up and we fight. And they do it. They take on the case and they win. And again, I think that's this one story on its own as her first case. Again, shows you so much, how it, again, the whole idea, like, you're a good person and you've had heroism thrust upon you, but you don't want the heroism. You don't want to be the hero. You don't want to be Superman. You don't want to be the villain either. All you want to do is go to work and provide for your family. But now your family's left you. Roxxon won't pay anything because Roxxon tried to basically say, well, why would we pay for anything that wasn't technically damaged? Again, it's that same argument. He is now super strong, super athletic, super healthy. He's got a prolonged life, devilishly good looking. He has everything every human's ever wanted. That is, you want to sue us for giving him gifts, and they're like, well, no, it's not a gift. It's the fact of, all the other stuff. And they're like, well, unless he died in the accident, we have any real legal reason to pay. And obviously, no insurance company will go for him. Again, I know it gets into the insurance part about it, but it's just really, really interesting how it goes that deep. It goes as far as, you realize, oh shit, this guy has no other way out, and his last thought was, I'm going to kill myself because that's the only way that Roxxon are going to pay, so my family has a life and are good. And then She-Hulk helps him, and that's a very beautiful story on its own. That on its own is just a very heartwarming and lovely sort of story. Next, you've got Dead Certain. This one's a bit of a mind fuckery sort of one. Basically, a guy that's been working on a project for a long, long time is murdered, and She-Hulk ends up getting Doctor Strange in, and Doctor Strange brings in sort of the ghost form of this guy because he's got unfinished business. He hasn't moved on, so Doctor Strange sort of brings this guy back and kind of has him plead his case, and he's a ghost. And obviously, She-Hulk comes in, trying to figure out what happened, how did the guy die, who sort of killed him, and it turns out that it was the head of the company had killed him, but there's a moment before that somebody tries to kill She-Hulk and tries to kind of kill her the same way that he was killed. And what it turns out that before he got to heaven, before he moved on to the next sort of phase, he realized that he was going to basically be alone forever. So that because he didn't want to be on his own forever, that he basically tried to frame his girlfriend for murder that she didn't commit, so that she would get the death penalty, so they would kill her, so that she would be with him till the end of time. And obviously they proved this wrong, and then the guy got put into prison in this like special sort of like runic sort of prison that Doctor Strange built, so that the guy won't go to the afterlife, that he'll be stuck here on Earth as a ghost in this cell forever. I know I just spoiled that whole one story, but again, that's just really again, this is how in depth and how silly they get. And again, cameos. They brought in Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is a really big, important sort of character in this one. And how basically he builds the cage and how he deals with the whole sort of the ghosts, and how he explains what life is like after death, and how basically the guy realized he's going to be on his own, so he didn't want to be, so he tried to frame his girlfriend for murder so she would be with him forever. It's kind of psychotic, really, but at the same stage you kind of see the romanticism behind it. The next one, I really, really like this one. This one's called Web of Lies. This one deals with She-Hulk's relationship with Spider-Man, and basically how somebody comes along and basically says to Spider-Man, I can sue J. Jonah Jameson for defamation. So kind of like what we had with sort of, I know bringing it into the real world a bit, kind of we had with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and all that, and the Daily Mail. Basically, I won't go into the big deal. Basically, the Daily Mail wrote in their story that Johnny Depp's a wife beater without any sort of proof and ruined his career. Kind of the same thing happened here in the comic book world with Spider-Man. Is about to, as you know, Joe Jameson as all time. Spider-Man's a menace. Spider-Man's a creep. Spider-Man's this. Spider-Man's that. Defamation after defamation after defamation. And basically, this one guy comes to Jen and basically says, "Oh, and get your friend Spider-Man. We need to talk." And basically says to Spider-Man, like, we can sue Joe Jonah Jameson. God, Stan Lee didn't make these names easy, did they? We're going to sue him for everything he's got for defamation. You're going to be a millionaire and all this jazz. And Peter's really into it, really, really interested. It's really, really sort of funny. Kind of, you get to see the wittiness of Spider-Man sort of brought into the fact of how fun Peter Parker is, and his banter with She-Hulk. Because in the comic books, She-Hulk and Spider-Man are really, really good friends. The villain in this one is Scorpion, because Scorpion wants to get revenge on both Spider-Man and Joe Jameson. Spider-Man goes in court. It's really, really, really funny moment where Spider-Man's in court. There's a funny moment where Jen fights Scorpion with Spider-Man while still sort of dressed in her lawyer sort of outfit, just kicking ass while wearing heels, which is just badass. I won't spoil the end of this story, but the end of the story is kind of really, really funny. I know I spoiled the last story, and I do apologize for anybody wanting to read it. But this last story, how it ends, made me chuckle, and it kind of was like, yeah, that kind of seems like that makes sense as to how it ends. Obviously, I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say it involves Peter Parker, and that's what I'm going to say of the ending, which is not much because again I've already mentioned Spider-Man's in it, but it will make sense once you read it. The next one is The Big Picture, Part 1, More Than a Handful. So this one deals with the villains Southpaw. If you don't know Southpaw is a young sort of teenager who basically I don't know the full origin, but she ends up finding a alien gauntlet that kind of attaches to her hand, and that kind of gives her sort of super strength with the gauntlet, as well as she can project what's it called hands and stuff like that from the gauntlet and blasts and stuff like that to take on enemies. And basically, this whole sort of legal sort of precedent that goes into She-Hulk having to be her lawyer and having to kind of be her carer, because they originally send her to prison, but they send her to a prison that was invented by Hank Pym. And what I've really loved about this prison is that it's a miniaturized, shrunken down prison. So the prison itself is just a building on the outside, but when you go into it, it's like a model of a prison, but it's actually a real prison. It's really hard to explain, but villains go there and they get shrunk by Hank Pym, and Hank Pym is kind of like the warden. It's really, really cool. Again, another thing that I didn't know existed in the MCU, in Marvel before, and when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a really, really interesting idea of a for a prison. But as these sort of things happen, as they do, prisoners, small prison break, tiny little prisoners, hilarity ensued. Just imagine like tiny rhino running at your feet. Like, it's gonna hurt, but it's just rhino, just miniature, just running at your feet. It's just funny. I don't do it justice. Obviously, like I say, it's a graphic novel. I don't do it any justice. Like, you have to kind of read it to really get the jokes and what I'm trying to say here. But I just think it's funny. So that's that one. The Big Picture Part 2, Major Complications. This whole one deals with the character Amazing Andy, who I love. He's actually fantastic. We also sort of learn in this one that Southpaw is the granddaughter of the guy that runs She-Hulk's superhero firm. Also, the sort of villains have escaped, but the villains are kind of stuck inside of the lawyer's office, because the building that's where the lawyers are has been specially modified by Stark so that it can withstand anything, even the attack by the Incredible Hulk, whether inside the building or outside the building. So all these sort of heroes are stuck inside of this sort of office block, tiny little office block, and they're all trying to hide. And She-Hulk just comes around, and she gets Absorbing Man, and like Absorbing Man's like, you can't bend me. I've touched steel. I'm as strong as steel. Obviously, because he's only tiny, she just grabs him in his hand like an action figure and just bends him backwards. It's quite sick, but it's also quite hilarious. And we've got Tiger Shark, which is another sort of D sort of level sort of villain. And she gets him in the water. She just throws him into a water tub, and she's like, you've underestimated me. Water gives me strength. And then she picks up Electro. She just throws Electro into the water, and they electrocute both of them. Then you have like a moment where you get like Sandman. Sandman tries to escape through the mail chute, and then you get Awesome Andy comes out of nowhere and just sucks up Sandman into the vacuum cleaner. Honestly, there is so many. So many cameos, so many silly little battles, so many little silly things. There's a moment where the Mad Thinker tries to take on Awesome Andy, tries to reprogram, and he's like, no, not going to work. And Awesome Andy just punches him through the chest and just like takes his head home and sleeps with his old master's head next to him. It's really cute and it's really, really silly. I love it. So the next one, you've got Universal Law Part 1. This is where it starts to get a bit sort of strange. Basically, there is a galactic contest on his planet to basically find the ultimate champion of the universe. And there's already one guy who's already the champion of the universe. And basically, on this planet, the only way to settle differences, to settle sort of problems, is by hand-to-hand combat. So they have boxing matches. The problem is this one guy who's this big fight who has the power gem of the purple Infinity Stone, was red in the comics, but has the power of that. So that he has the power of cosmic. He has ultimate power. He's the ultimate strongest being because of the Infinity Stone, and he says, I'm going to keep sort of hurting these people of this planet, and I'm going to start abusing them and all that, if no one can beat me. So Gamora, Pip, Adam Warlock come together, and they try to get some of the best fighters. And they put Beta Ray Bill up against him. They put the Gladiator. They put I'm trying to remember who else they put up against him. They put Drax the Destroyer. Trying to think who else. I'm trying to flick through and try to remember who else they put up against him. Adam Warlock goes up against him. These are some strong, heavy hitters, but each one, because he's got the Power Stone, they just knock him out one by one. So what happens? The Living Tribunal basically comes to She-Hulk and basically goes, "Well, we want you to be a space lawyer," basically. And she takes it. She's like, "Yeah, no problem. I'll be a space lawyer." She takes Southpaw with her because she's currently looking after Southpaw. She does a few cases. She meets the Living Tribunal. Adam Warlock basically gets beaten the shit out of. The Watchers end up getting involved, and we get a cameo from the Watchers. And then there's a moment at the end of it where it's like, we kind of need you to go fight the champion of the universe because we've got nobody left. And at this moment, I was thinking, well, why don't we just? Again, in my head, I'm thinking, well, why don't we just call the Hulk? Then I remembered, I think during this issue, because nobody really mentions the Hulk, I think during this thing of like, is the Hulk actually there, or is the Hulk off on Planet Hulk at this moment in time? I'm not sure. But I was thinking, why don't they ask the Hulk? But that ends with sort of her doing her last trial with the Watchers. Then you've got Universal Laws Part 2, Engagement Ring. It's a lawyer versus the warrior. And we have this moment where we have She-Hulk, and she takes on the champion. Absolutely annihilates her, takes her out. This guy's going up against the Silver Surfer, and he's taking on Super Skrulls and all that. Drax the Destroyer. That's where we learn more about him and about his history and why they're basically trying to take him out, but nobody's been able to beat him. And then She-Hulk's like, yeah, I'll take him on. Gets absolutely rinsed. The guy's really, really sexist. He's like, hold on, what man of mockery is this? A female is entering the ring. And then She-Hulk's like, the sad thing is, that's the closest I've gotten to a compliment all day. Then he's like, I give up fighting females eons ago. I found the experience both boring and beneath me. And he was like, well, no. And the guy's like, well, are you going to forfeit then? Because if you're not going to fight her, that means you're going to forfeit. He goes, no, I just don't want to fight a woman. And then She-Hulk's like, well, come on then. I'm not a woman. I'll beat the crap out of you. So we do it. So they do fight. Obviously, she hits him, does nothing because he's got the Power Stone. It ain't going to do nothing. Even the strongest guy, even Thanos or anything like that, would take him on and it wouldn't work because of the Power Stone. So he knocks her out, basically goes, yeah, I knew women are weak and all this. And she's like, well, fucking fine, that's it, round 2. So she ends up scheduling for another round 2. But she ends up going, well, I can't beat him as She-Hulk, so I've got to beat him as Jen. So she starts working out as Jen. And what that means is the fact of, because she only works out as She-Hulk, she doesn't really get a workout because she's already strong. So she starts working out as Jen, starts getting the muscles. So when she turns into She-Hulk, she's jacked, right? She's absolutely immensely strong. And then she also uses her mind to sort of take on the guy. And she goes, well, I will fight you again, but the law is no weapons are allowed inside of the ring. That Infinity Gem is a weapon. I will only fight you if you get rid of it. And he's like, well, I beat you once. You're a girl. Come on then, let's have it on. They have it on. She beats the shit out of him. He's there quivering. He's like, oh, God, no. That's unfair. And she's like, well, that's the rules. And the rules were, if she beats him, which she does easily, she knocks the crap out of him. Basically, he can never put the Infinity Stone on again. He can keep it, but he can never use it. Because if he does, it would kill him. And because of the tribunal and all that, he has to stick to it. Because if he doesn't stick to it, he will be trialed and most likely death. So yeah, stick to it. So that story kind of really, I loved it because you could just see how strong She-Hulk is, and it was kind of the fact of, yes, She-Hulk's strong, she's sexy, she's powerful. She took on a sexist, and yeah, I loved it. You know, it was great, and obviously she'd be more big and buff, and I was like, yeah, I love it. I love my big powerful women. Anyway, before I get too weird, I'm going to move on. So next one is called Strong Enough. This one deals with Hercules. I love Hercules. Hercules is another one of them characters that whenever he appears, I've never read a Hercules comic, but whenever Hercules appears, mainly when it's to do with Thor, but when he appears, it's always fun to see because he speaks as you would imagine Hercules speaks. He goes, "Know this, vile miscreants, for you attack on your armored conveyance. Thou hast earned the undying thanks of Hercules. Your villainy is most welcome this day, for too long have I ached for such sport, to hear the din of battle and to cry out in a thunderous voice." So he speaks as you would imagine a very Shakespearean, very sort of thy and thee and all that, which I always love whenever he comes on, and he just beats the crap out of who was it now? Who's the villain? I'm trying to remember who the villain was. Constrictor. Constrictor is like a villain. He has like kind of like Whiplash. He has like these metal coils that come out of out of the top his wrists basically, and he electrocutes them. And basically, Hercules has a hammer and just swings and breaks the guy's face in two. And the guy tries to sue Hercules for that, and Hercules is like, well, no, you're a villain, I'm a hero, you know, I did my job. And the guy's like, well, no, you broke his face, broke his, he dislocated it and everything, he needed correctional surgery. And there's a funny moment where the two lawyers for the villain and Hercules come apart and they try to talk, and in the background it's just the fact of Hercules picks him up, and he's like, he goes, "You churlish rogue," and like Constrictor's like, "What you doing?" And he gets him because, "You will suffer my audacity no more," and just picks him up and just like beats the shit out of him again. Because Hercules don't stand for it. Hercules is old fashioned. He's like, yeah, you're a villain. I will not be done like this. And now She-Hulk comes in. He's like, whoa, calm down. I'll be your lawyer. I'll sort this out. Really cool sort of story. Really funny. I love it when anything Hercules comes into it and they try to settle on it, but they can't sort of settle on this sort of, like, Hercules doesn't want to settle, but eventually they end up settling. Well, they try not to settle at first, but they end up coming to an agreement, and Hercules, not knowing his own strength, basically taps the guy on the back, being like, "Oh yeah, no problem. I'll we'll can settle the agreement out of court." And within doing so, accidentally breaks the guy's body, every bone in the guy's body, puts him in a cast, so the guy just sues him for millions. And Hercules is like, you know what? Yeah, fair enough, my bad. And like She-Hulk's like, might as well just pay it. That's what heroes would do. The hero would pay it. You're the good guy. He's the bad guy. That way we can just move on, and you can get on to being the hero. Hercules is like, yeah, you're right. Pays it, moves on. It's a silly little story, but that's the thing about She-Hulk is like they're not serious stories, but they're very very silly, very fun. Next story is called Skeeter. Now, I didn't know anything about Titania. I didn't know. All I knew, Titania from Secret Wars. That's where her character started because she didn't work with, but she was basically coerced, sort of brought in by Doctor Doom, and Doctor Doom did experiment on her, gave her superpowers, super strength, and all that. And then she ended up taking on She-Hulk, and basically ever since she's been one of She-Hulk's biggest sort of enemies. I know that Titania does appear in the She-Hulk TV show. If she's going to be the same version of it, if it's because I don't know if they're going to they might just make her a mutant. I don't know because they haven't announced Doctor Doom yet, who the Doctor Doom is, so I don't know if they're going to bring that in. Hopefully they do. Fingers crossed. That'll be a way to kind of announce Doctor Doom without actually showing Doctor Doom. But this whole story kind of shows you the evolution of Titania, where she started and how she always wanted, again, like Jen, nobody knew her, nobody cared. She came from a big family, but she was the youngest, so she was forgotten. Nobody cared about her, so she wanted to become a superhero. And within doing so, she lies, saying, "Oh, I'm Spider-Woman. That's me." Gets invited to a big party. Turns out that party that she was on, that part of Denver that she was in a party in Denver, gets sent off into space and turns into Battle World, which then starts our Secret Wars. And then it goes into the whole idea, and I learned a lot more about her backstory of who she is and how she meets Doctor Doom and how she basically transformed her. Really, really interesting sort of story, because Titania was never sort of a character that I really knew about. She was just a villain that kind of got, every now and then, or always, to be honest, got beat the shit out of either by the Avengers or She-Hulk. Always, no matter how much she trained, She-Hulk would always beat the crap out of her. And at the end of this story, we meet the champion, the former champion that She-Hulk beat up at two issues ago. He basically comes to Titania and goes, "I've got the Infinity Stone. I've got the Power Gem. I'm going to give it to you. I can't use it, but we both hate She-Hulk, so I'm going to give you this Power Stone so you can take on She-Hulk and basically beat her up for both of us, really." So she does. She ends up going there, sort of taking her on, and we ends up seeing a lot more of the Avengers. We get to see a lot more of the Fantastic Four. So Jen can't take her on. Jen's trying her best to fight her, but she's not winning. And again, it's that fact of what I was saying at the beginning of this is as the story goes on, Jen starts to realize that she's not just She-Hulk. She's not just the strong woman, strong, beautiful, sexy lady that she is. She is also Jen. She's also an intelligent, smart lawyer, and that she's got to lawyer her way out of this shit. You know what I mean? She's got to figure it out using her brains, not just her brawn. And she does. She figures out, and basically what she ends up doing. Well, actually, no, I won't spoil what she does because it's quite clever. But ensues a giant battle between She-Hulk and Titania, two beautiful, strong women fighting. Oh, I love it. I love it. I'll be honest, I've said it many times, I have a thing for strong, powerful women. I just do. I don't know where it comes from. Maybe because when I growing up, I watched like Terminator a lot and all these other sort of movies like Ripley and all that. I just love strong female character types. Since then, I've just loved them. And She-Hulk and Titania. Oh wow, love it. Um, is that creepy to say? No, I don't know. It isn't. It's just being honest, I guess. So that's that story. Finally, the last story. Some disassembly required. This is where she ends up planning and figuring out how to take on Titania. It's really, really interesting sort of story. Again, I won't sort of spoil the ending of it or how it sort of works, but by the end, She-Hulk wins. I'll say that. And you have a really cool epilogue and kind of to see where the characters are now and where they're going to be when the story starts next. Hercules gets a job with damage control, so every time he damages something, any other hero damages something, he will come in and do the heavy lifting and kind of an honest day's work and tries his best to, because obviously he's used all of his money to all the money that he had to pay off his debt to the villain that he beat the crap out of. He now has to get a normal job to kind of get his money back. And as a hero, Hercules being Hercules, he's like, "Oh, thou will do it. It's fine. I don't mind." And yeah, that's it. That's it. Overall, fantastic. If I had to give this 5 stars out of 5 stars, that's what I would give it. I'd give it a full 5 stars plus. Like, going into this, I was expecting all out. Kind of like what you get when you read a Hulk graphic novel, when you read a Hulk comic. You expect hulkiness. You expect the fighting, page after page of just Hulk going at it and being scary and fighting and just epic visual stimuli. But in this, what you got the comedy, you got the sort of the side of She-Hulk you don't normally see. You got the Jen, the Walters part of it. You've got the lawyer part of it. You got you got to see other sort of cameos. You just get everything, really. You get everything that you'd want and more. And from reading it, got me excited for the show because I've seen the trailer and I've seen all the sort of weird superheroes and villains that have started to show up, and I'm thinking that's what they've done. They've taken inspiration from the comic books, and they've just gone all out on it. And I just love. I can't wait because there's going to be so many cameos. It's going to be fun. It's going to be silly. It's going to be just yeah. I'm just so really, really, really excited. I've just looked at the time and realised I've been talking for 44 minutes, and I can feel it in my voice already. I'm just excited, I'm really, 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 really excited for what they do with She-Hulk. I don't know where they're going to go with it or how it's all going to link in. But Wong's there, so I'm guessing Wong's there for some reason. Unless somebody's suing Wong, then Wong's getting sued, or should I say, the Sorcerer Supreme is getting sued. Maybe, who knows? If somebody's going to try to sue Doctor Strange, or someone's going to try and sue, um, you know, Hercules for doing his job, for being the hero, then all cards are off the table. Let's see if somebody because I know Daredevil. We saw Daredevil in the trailer. Are we going to see some lawyer versus lawyer action between She-Hulk and Daredevil? Who knows? The possibilities are endless. I have to get more of these. I have looked online and there are more volumes. So I'm definitely going to look in and getting more She-Hulk volumes and read them, because I just love the Hulk characters in general. I love the Thunderbolts, and I love anything to do with this whole sort of thing. So I'm in love with She-Hulk, and I can't wait to read more of her. But yeah, that is it. That is all she wrote. I am now knackered. I'm going to take a quick break, I think, and then we're going to wrap it off nicely. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I feel like it's just me rambling and just being excited. I hope you guys enjoy it. There is passion there. There's love there. It's just really, really hot, and I'm exhausted. So I'm going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back, and then we'll end it quite nicely. All right, then. Let's go take a break, shall we, guys? So yeah, that is it. That is the end of the line. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you really, really liked it. To be honest, like I said, I'm really, really excited to see what they do with She-Hulk. This whole idea of all the cameos, and this whole sort of graphic novel has got me excited for what might be next. Because that's the thing about this, is the fact of I never knew where it was going. I never knew who was going to show up next. I didn't know what case she was going to deal with next. I didn't know what the character was going to do next. When she's She-Hulk, yes, she's really, really strong, but at the same stage, she's quite witty, she's quite humorous. When she's Jen, she's quite smart, she's quite sort of quick-witted, as well as sort of very much of like, she's, even though she's not as strong, as powerful, and invincible as She-Hulk, she's still very strong and very sort of standing up for herself and dealing with the problem if need be. She doesn't mind putting herself in harm's way. So it just showed more of the She-Hulk that I didn't know was already there, and generally just it just gets me excited. I'm just over the moon to see what happens next in this series. I'm gonna get, like I said, I'm gonna get more of them, and also whatever they decide to do with her in the episode, or in the episodes, should I say. So yeah, fingers crossed, because obviously this comes out on the Wednesday. So fingers crossed when we watch the episode together tomorrow on Thursday, that it's going to be absolutely. I was going to say absolutely amazeballs, but then I kind of stopped and I thought, oh, that's going to sound a bit cheesy. I just hope it's something good. I really, really do. Like I said, even if it's shit, I would still probably enjoy it because I like She-Hulk. Hawkeye wasn't that great of a show, but I liked it because I liked Jeremy Renner's version of Hawkeye. You know what I mean? And I kind of liked what they did with Kate Bishop. You know what I mean? So even so, wasn't great. I carried on watching it because I like the characters, and I'm sure that's what will happen here, even if the show is crap, which I don't think it will be. But we'll see. But yeah, that is all she wrote. That is everything. As always, I hope you enjoy it. If you want to hear more things from me, or hear my opinion on things, or if you want to hear what a live sort of feelings of how I feel about She-Hulk when the episode comes out tomorrow, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. Also, you can find this podcast on Spotify. You can find it on Anchor, Google Podcast, Amazon Music Podcast. You can also find the podcast on YouTube by searching the Nerdstalgic Podcast, and then just look for my flaming face, and you'll find me there. Also, don't forget, if you're listening on Spotify, to rate. So if you go onto my picture, go over my profile on Spotify, there'll be a little star rating thing. Click on that if you haven't already, and that gives you an option to rate from 1 to 5 stars. 5 stars being the best thing you've ever heard in your life. She-Hulk basically being incredible and amazing, and then 1 star Vogon's doing poetry while She-Hulk beats the shit out of you. You know what I mean? 1 being bad, 5 being good. Whatever you feel like is fair, by all means check it out. Of course, if you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to like and follow and all that jazz, really. You guys know how it works by now. So if you listen on to YouTube, please do that. It helps out immensely. As I'm recording this, I'm currently at 42 subscribers, which for me is amazing, and I thank everybody who subscribed and who listens to the show on YouTube. So I appreciate every single one of you. And that, oh no, before I was going to say, thank you again to World of Books. Just to remind you guys, use the code nerdy10, all higher case nerdy, NERDY 10 at checkout to get 10% off your order whenever you buy from them, from books to video games to movies, anything and everything that they sell. 10% off at checkout. Get on it, and thank you very much to them for sponsoring the show. And that is everything, I think. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic Podcast. I have been your host, Luke. It's been a pleasure, as always, for your company. And thank you for listening. Again, if you're a returning listener, I appreciate you so deeply. If you're a new listener, again, thank you. And I will appreciate you just as much if you listen to another episode, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5, or every single. Yeah, you know what? Start from the beginning. Work your way up. Yeah, from my introduction all the way up to now. Re-listen to this one. You don't have to. If you want to, I'll love you even more than my returning fans, because you, listening, new follower, are the best. I love you. Yeah. I don't know what I was doing there. I went really cheesy there. But in all seriousness, thank you for listening. It's absolute honor and pleasure to do this for you folks every week. It's so therapeutic. So thank you for allowing me to do this. And thank you for listening. And yeah, that is everything. So I'm going to leave now. You've been listening to the Nerdstalgic Podcast, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.